Today, we are strapping in for a deep dive that takes us well outside our solar system. And it really challenges one of the most fundamental assumptions in conventional science.
Which assumption is that?
That every single piece of debris, arriving in our neighborhood from way out there is just a natural rock or maybe an icy comet.
Right. We're definitely moving past the comfortable zone here, the established consensus of, let's call it classical astronomy.
Where are we heading?
We're venturing directly into the realm of true anomalies, things that don't quite fit, highly improbable occurrences, what people often term black swan events.
Black swans, okay.
And if these events do happen, they fundamentally rewrite our understanding of physics, maybe even our origins, certainly our place in the universe. It's big stuff.
Definitely sounds big. Our source material for this deep dive is, well, it's vast.
Yeah.
It covers astronomical observations, statistical physics, philosophical arguments, all concerning two really mysterious interstellar visitors. These objects came from outside our solar system, and they just don't behave like the usual suspects, the comets and asteroids we track.
We're talking Oumuamua.
Exactly. The famous one, still baffling people, and this absolutely colossal object known as 330 Atlas. The third confirmed interstellar object, right?
That's the one. A real giant.
So our mission today, let's lay it out. We're focusing explicitly on exploring the argument, the case for why responsible science.
Operating with intellectual honesty.
Yes, and cosmic modesty.
Yay.
Why it must seriously consider the possibility that we're encountering not just natural stuff, but potentially, alien technology, fragments, maybe probes.
And this isn't science fiction, just to be clear. It's about rigorously following the data, wherever it leads, even if the conclusion makes people uncomfortable.
And then talking about what that means, the profound implications for all of us, for humanity's future.
It's a huge task.
It really is. The stakes are undeniably high. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's jump right into the core idea here. The Black Swan event.
So, a black swan. At its simplest, it's an event with a very, very small probability of happening. Maybe minuscule.
Almost zero chance.
Almost. But here's the kicker. If it does occur, its implications are massive, game-changing, capable of altering the course of history or science.
So how should we handle that? This tiny chance, massive impact scenario.
The logic is pretty straightforward, actually. If the potential impact is huge, even that tiny probability warrants serious, systematic investigation. You need to invest resources. You can't just dismiss it.
It sounds like the ultimate risk management framework. We mentioned Pascal's wager as an analogy.
Yeah, it's a good parallel. Pascal wasn't trying to prove God exists. His point was about the stakes. If the consequences are infinite eternal reward or damnation, you have to weigh that heavily, even if you think the initial probability is slight.
You act based on the consequence, not just the low probability.
Exactly, and we see real-world examples where ignoring potential black swans led to catastrophe. It shows why science needs to be careful here.
Like what?
Well, consider the intelligence failure leading up to October 7th. There was this dominant theory in some intelligence circles, right, that Hamas was deterred, focused on political stability. That was the comfortable, low-risk view.
The status quo.
Right. But then data started coming in suggesting otherwise, indicating aggressive planning what happened. That data was often dismissed or sort of filtered to fit the existing comfortable framework.
Because it didn't match the theory they already believed.
Precisely. And the cost of refusing to seriously consider that catastrophic possibility, well, it was immense. So when we're talking about interstellar objects, we're discovering alien tech, a partner or maybe a rival is civilization altering.
Yeah.
Scientists just cannot afford that kind of intellectual closure, that refusal to look at the data, even if it points somewhere scary.
That definitely sets the stage. Okay, let's talk about the first object that really forced this confrontation. Oumuamua. 1I 2017 U1. The Pioneer.
Right. When Oumuamua was discovered back in 2017, it immediately threw a wrench in our neat classifications. The key thing, the defining fact, was its motion.
How so?
It showed this unambiguous, non-gravitational acceleration, meaning something other than gravity was physically pushing it away from the sun.
Okay, hang on. Isn't that just a comet? Comets heat up, ice turns to gas, creates a jet, right? Like a little rocket boost.
Yeah.
That's natural non-gravitational acceleration.
But that's the crucial sticking point. If it were a comet accelerating because of outgassing, we would absolutely expect to see a tail, gas, dust, the usual cometary signature.
And Oumuamua
showed absolutely none. Zero visible gas, zero dust, total absence. And that forced the traditional scientific community into a real bind. You had acceleration, but no visible cause, no fuel source.
And wasn't the shape also really weird? That added to the mystery.
Well, yeah. Based on how its brightness changed, wildly varied as it tumbled, the calculations pointed to an extreme shape. Highly elongated, maybe like a cigar, or possibly flat, like a pancake.
Pancake or cigar, that's quite a range.
Yeah. Well, the aspect ratio was changing by maybe a factor of 10 as it spun, so really not spherical at all. And this unstable rotation, combined with that mysterious push, it really strained the boundaries of any natural explanation.
Which brings us to that analogy you used, the zebra without stripes.
It's a perfect description, I think, of the scientific dogma we sometimes see. Imagine you're a comet expert. That's your whole career.
Okay.
You see an object, it moves like a comet, it accelerates. But it doesn't look like a comet, no tail.
Yeah.
What's the most comfortable explanation? The career-safe explanation.
Call it a weird comet.
Exactly. Call it a dark comet, a comet without a visible tail. You're essentially forcing this completely new thing into an old box. You're looking at an elephant and calling it a zebra without stripes.
Because the alternative is too radical.
The alternative that it might be, say, a flat, highly reflective technological object being pushed by sunlight like a light sail requires a huge conceptual shift, a paradigm change. And some academics are just, well, they're unwilling to go there.
So Oumuamua was the warning shot. Size of a football field. Totally unexpected.
Yeah.
But if that was the pioneer, then 3Z Atlas came soon after, and it's just a titan. The scale difference is mind-boggling.
It is genuinely staggering. 3Z Atlas is conservatively 1,000,000 times more massive than Oumuamua.
1,000,000.
Minimum. Its estimated diameter is huge, over 5 kilometers across.
5 kilometers.
To give you a sense of scale, that's roughly the size of Manhattan Island, compared to Oumuamua, which was, football field sized. Tiny in comparison.
And finding something that big that quickly,
Yeah.
that creates a statistical problem, doesn't it? If these things are just random rocks drifting through space.
Exactly right. It introduces a major mass dilemma. When we model the expected traffic, the flow of massive rocky interstellar objects into the inner solar system, our statistics suggest we should only expect to see something that massive maybe once every 10,000 years.
Once every 10 millennia.
Yeah. And yet, we found 3Z Atlas within just a decade of having really advanced sky surveys online. That statistical unlikelihood, it forces you to ask questions.
Like, are we just incredibly lucky? Astronomically lucky?
Or is the way interstellar mass is packaged simply not random? Could these large objects be somehow engineered? Or sent with a purpose? The sheer improbability of finding it so soon should be a major red flag by itself.
And the way it moved, the trajectory anomalies just add to that feeling of non-randomness.
Oh, definitely. The motion of 3Z Atlas was studied intensely. We gathered 4,000 data points from 227 observatories worldwide. This is solid data.
Okay.
And first, when we calculated its path, unlike Oumuamua, there was no evidence of that kind of recoil you would expect from mass loss, from outgassing.
So no mysterious push like Oumuamua had.
None detected. Which means its motion seems sculpted purely by gravity. And for that to work, given its path, it had to be exceptionally massive. The derived value is around 33 billion tons.
33 billion tons. Wow, but the path it took, you said that seemed almost strategic.
Yes, two characteristics really stand out. First, its path is aligned very closely with the plane of the planets, the ecliptic, to within 5 degrees.
How likely is that, right?
If it were just a random object flung in from deep space, the probability of it hugging the ecliptic plane that closely is only about 1 in 500. Pretty low odds.
Okay, what's the second thing?
Second, it follows a retrograde path. It moves opposite to the direction all the planets are orbiting the sun.
So flying against the traffic, basically. Why is that specific combination retrograde, but in the plane of the planets? Why is that significant?
Mechanically, think about it. If you were an advanced civilization wanting to deploy, say, mini probes or sensors into a dense planetary system like ours, a retrograde trajectory is actually ideal.
How so?
By moving against the flow of the planets, you maximize the relative speed between your main object and the planets it passes. This high relative speed allows for rapid, optimized deployment. You get closer passes to more planets in a shorter amount of time.
So it maximizes the encounters.
Exactly. It looks functionally like a very efficient reconnaissance path. Purposeful, even.
Okay, let's pivot to what it looked like and what it was made of, because that's where the data gets really bizarre, right? Almost like industrial waste.
It does get strange. Early Hubble images showed this extended feature, sort of a glow, that was initially called a tail.
Like a comet tail.
Except this tail was doing something highly unusual. It was pointing towards the sun.
Towards. But tails get pushed away by solar wind and radiation.
Always, which is why we call this an anti-tail. It's physically counterintuitive for a natural comet. Now, if you correct for the fact that we were seeing it almost edge on...
That viewing angle.
Right. The feature is likely highly elongated, maybe 10 times longer than it is wide. That suggests something more focused, like a jet, rather than a diffuse, spread-out cometary tail.
And the chemistry of that jet or plume, that's
Yeah.
what really set off alarm bells about industrial origins.
Absolutely. Spectral analysis of the gas revealed an extraordinarily specific chemical ratio, high abundance of nickel,
Okay.
but very little iron relative to the nickel. Now, in almost all natural objects we know, comets, asteroids, even the sun itself, iron is typically about 10 times more abundant than nickel.
So this was backwards. High nickel, low iron. Where do we see that ratio?
Almost exclusively in Earth-based industrial alloys, particularly things used in sophisticated aerospace applications, where you need specific strength, heat resistance.
Wait, hang on. So this chemical fingerprint is common in our factories,
Yeah.
but basically unseen in natural space objects.
That is precisely the anomaly. As far as we know, yes. So the scientific community had to address this weird ratio. They acknowledged, yes, nature hasn't been observed making this specific nickel-iron mix.
Yep.
But instead of considering, hey, maybe it's not natural, they hypothesized that nature must somehow, through some highly specific, never-before-seen natural process, achieve this exact chemical separation.
What kind of process?
They actually conjectured it happened via a known industrial separation process called the carbonyl pathway.
An industrial process that they're saying nature just did spontaneously.
Yes, it's a massive intellectual leap, isn't it?
Yeah.
To insist that nature somehow mimicked a pathway previously unique to manufacturing, rather than just considering maybe it was manufactured, it's the zebra without stripes again, but applied to chemistry.
Wow. Okay, finally, on three-dyed Atlas. It was initially called a dirty snowball, like a comet, based on assumptions about water, right? What did better instruments like the Webb telescope actually find?
Right, those early estimates suggested lots of water, but they had huge error bars. They were rough guesses. The Webb telescope, with its incredible precision, definitively corrected that.
Okay.
Webb's measurements showed only about 4% of the mass being lost was water. Only 4%. The vast majority, 87%, was carbon dioxide, CO2.
So mostly dry ice, not water ice.
Essentially. And that low water percentage drastically differentiates it from typical water-rich comets in our own solar system. It just has another layer of evidence suggesting this is an exotic, maybe even processed object.
Moving beyond the specific data on these objects, it really feels like the reluctance to accept these findings, the push for the dark comet explanation or the natural carbonyl pathway, it seems rooted in something deeper, like a cultural block, a belief in human specialness.
It's a profound lack of cosmic modesty, I think. And it absolutely echoes historical scientific blunders. We just need to look back at Galileo.
The Earth-centric view.
Exactly. Our planet is this tiny speck of debris, 3/millionths the mass of the sun. Yet the church resisted Galileo's idea that maybe not everything revolves around us for 350 years. They only formally admitted the mistake in 1992.
Wow, 1992, that late.
That late. And the new Copernican revolution, the one we need now, demands we realize we are likely not the most intelligent species out there, nor are we the first.
It's like the kindergarten analogy, right?
Yeah.
But on a cosmic scale.
Perfectly put. A child thinks they're the center of everything until they go to kindergarten and meet other kids. Some older, some smarter, some who know things they don't. We as a civilization need that dose of reality.
And the timescales involved are just immense.
Immense. The Milky Way galaxy is 13.8 billion years old. Our entire documented human history, where we developed things like radio, space travel, that's only maybe 8,000 to 11,000 years, a blink of an eye.
We are definitely late to the play, as you put it.
Undeniably, we absolutely must expect there are smarter, older, far more advanced civilizations out there on the cosmic block. Think about it. A civilization that launched its version of Voyager, just say, 1 billion years before us, they would have already crisscrossed the entire galaxy dozens of times over.
Okay, so if the data for these objects is so compelling and the philosophical argument for cosmic modesty is strong, why is there such intense academic dogma, such resistance? It feels almost tribal.
It really is a serious culture clash within academia. And a lot of it, frankly, is driven by career security and fear. I sometimes think of cosmology as the chess players. Yeah, it's a field where big ideas, imagination, intellectual risk-taking, they're often rewarded. Think about dark matter, dark energy, widely accepted theoretical concepts, billions spent searching, but we still can't directly see them.
Right. High theory, high risk, but accepted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In contrast, you have fields like comet and asteroid studies, which, well, sometimes I jokingly call it mud wrestling.
Mud wrestling, implying it's messier, less forgiving.
Far less forgiving of deviation. In these more established observational fields, taking intellectual risks is heavily punished. The peer review system, which should be objective, often acts as a gatekeeper. It protects the existing intellectual status quo.
How so?
Editors and reviewers routinely block papers that even suggest technological origins for anomalies. I saw this firsthand with our 3-buyer atlas trajectory paper. The journal editor refused point blank to publish it until we physically removed a single sentence.
What did the sentence say?
It simply suggested the possibility of a design trajectory, just floated the idea. Removing it was the price of publication, and that actively suppresses the open, critical discussion we need about potential black swan events.
And that fear isn't just about ideas, right? It's tied to jobs, funding.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest fear is ridicule. Imagine you're a young scientist, maybe trying to get tenure. If you step off the beaten path and suggest an anomaly might be alien tech, you risk jeopardizing your entire career. Tenure denied, grant funding dried up, maybe even being professionally shunned.
So the system itself discourages the very kind of imaginative risk-taking needed for breakthroughs.
Sadly, yes. But we have to remember, mainstream science can be wrong. And spectacularly so. We spent $10 billion searching for supersymmetry particles based on this beautiful, elegant theory that was widely accepted for decades. Came up empty. The theory appears to be wrong. We took massive risks based on elegant math and failed. So why are we now so terrified to take small, targeted risks based on compelling data? It doesn't make sense.
This resistance even fought against physical evidence recovery, didn't it? With that 2014 interstellar meteor, IM-1, that seems like a critical case study in trying to ignore data.
The IM-1 case is textbook. Absolutely textbook evidence of this cultural resistance. So 2014, a meteor hits Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific. U.S. Space Command tracks it.
Okay.
They confirmed it was moving incredibly fast, 60 kilometers per second before hitting the atmosphere. So fast, they calculated a 99.9999% certainty it came from outside the solar system. Interstellar.
And there was something else unusual.
Yes. It held together until it got really low, only about 20 kilometers altitude. That means it was substantially tougher, much harder than any known natural meteoroid, which usually break up much higher.
And you led an expedition to find pieces of it. A $1.5 million expedition. That's serious commitment.
It was. We needed to find physical proof. We used a custom-built magnetic sled to dredge the ocean floor in the calculated impact zone based on the government data. And we succeeded. We found tiny molten droplets, spherules that survived the fireball and crash.
And analyzing them.
We found that about 10% of these spherules had a chemical composition completely different from any known solar system materials. It wasn't pollution, wasn't coal ash from ships, wasn't earth crust contamination. It was genuinely anomalous material. Interstellar and weirdly strong.
So physical evidence. You'd think that would change minds.
You would think, but the narrative from critics immediately shifted. They didn't engage with the chemical data. Instead, they attacked the method. The narrative became, oh, they went to the wrong place. They claimed we relied on faulty seismic data from nearby islands. This completely ignored the fact that our search box was determined by highly precise, classified fireball data from U.S. government satellites.
So they ignored the strong government data and focused on weaker secondary data to discredit the location.
Exactly. They threw mud. They tried to invalidate the findings by attacking the where rather than engaging with what the actual chemical evidence of the anomalous materials we brought back. It just shows the incredible lengths some in the academic community will go to try and shove compelling anomalies under the rug of conventional thinking.
This kind of intense, almost data-averse resistance, it must have real consequences for where scientific funding goes. When we look at the search for life beyond Earth, where are we putting the big money right now?
Overwhelmingly, the priority is finding microbes. Simple life. We're allocating billions, over $10 billion projected for the next generation of instruments like the Habitable Worlds Observatory. It's explicitly designed to search for chemical fingerprints, biosignatures. signs of bacteria or algae in the atmospheres of exoplanets. We're basically hyper-focused on looking through the cosmic window, searching for signs of mold growing in our neighbor's yard.
Okay, searching for microbes. And how much official federal funding is allocated to searching for, well, intelligence, for technology, for signs of a thinking neighbor?
Zero, officially. $0.
Zero, really?
Zero federal funding currently allocated to the search for intelligent life or technosignatures. And this is, in my personal view, a catastrophic oversight. It's driven by institutional fear of ridicule, I think.
But the payoff could be huge.
Look, finding microbes would be fascinating, scientifically profound, no question. But finding and actually learning from an advanced, intelligent neighbor, the implications would be orders of magnitude greater. It could instantly leapfrog our understanding of physics, technology, maybe even long-term survival strategies. We absolutely must hedge our bets and dedicate resources to searching for intelligence alongside the search for biology.
And that huge funding gap, that lack of official support, that's essentially why the Galileo Project was created, right? To fill that void.
Exactly. The Galileo Project is the first properly organized, systematic, well-funded private initiative specifically designed to use sophisticated sensors and AI, machine learning, to look for physical artifacts, anomalous objects near Earth.
Not just listening for radio signals like old SETI.
No, we are looking for physical evidence and trying to distinguish it reliably from human-made technology or natural phenomena.
And you've got a really unique observatory set up now using triangulation in a novel way.
We have, and this is a brand new, exciting development. We've installed the first array of our specialized cameras, infrared and visible light, right on top of the sphere in Las Vegas.
The big glowing ball.
That's the one. It's 120 meters high, gives us an incredible, unobstructed view to monitor the entire Vegas sky, 204/7. But the key is the triangulation.
Right, you mentioned triangulation. How does that work here?
We're placing 2 additional identical copies of this observatory system about 10 kilometers away from the sphere, forming a precise triangle. 3 viewpoints looking at the same sky.
Explain for our listeners why having those 3 points, those 3 eyes, is so critical for this project.
Triangulation is everything for determining distance accurately. By having 3 synchronized cameras observing the same object simultaneously, we can instantly calculate its precise distance, its velocity, and its acceleration.
Without ambiguity.
Exactly. This allows us to map out the performance envelope of all known human technology, commercial planes, military jets, drones from, say, adversarial nations. We know how fast they can go, how quickly they can turn, what heat signatures they produce.
So you establish a baseline of normal.
Precisely. Then anything that deviates significantly from those known human performance parameters, things like impossible acceleration, velocities too high for chemical rockets, sharp turns with no inertia, maybe a lack of any expected thermal signature that gets flagged immediately by our AI software as a true unknown. A genuine anomaly worth investigating further.
Which makes the system incredibly useful, actually, even if you never find anything definitively alien.
Absolutely. That dual-use potential ensures the project's value and long-term viability. Let's say, hypothetically, we scan the skies for 10 years and find no conclusive evidence of non-human technology. Okay. We can then deliver this proven, sophisticated surveillance system, along with its AI software, to, say, the Department of Defense.
To track human-made threats.
Exactly. To monitor adversarial drones, unidentified aerial phenomena that might be terrestrial. It helps national security. So the project is a win-win. It pushes the boundaries of science, and if that doesn't yield the ultimate prize, it still provides a valuable tool for security.
Okay, so that's monitoring from Earth.
Yeah.
But how do we escalate the search, go beyond just watching?
We absolutely must move from passive observation to active investigation. The next logical step is developing interceptors.
Spacecraft that can chase these things down.
Exactly. I envision a small fleet, maybe, of highly maneuverable spacecraft, designed to launch quickly, on demand, to intercept newly detected interstellar objects. Another Oumuamua, another C3Up Atlas, while they're still relatively close to Earth.
And what would these interceptors do?
Get close up, take high-resolution images, confirm if there are technological features. Are there bolts, rivets, seams, buttons, antennas, things nature doesn't make? And crucially, ideally, they could return samples to Earth for detailed lab analysis.
A single clear picture of a manufactured object would end the debate instantly.
Instantly. It would resolve the scientific argument overnight.
And on the passive side, just finding more of these objects.
Yeah.
That's about to get easier, right? with new telescopes coming online.
That's correct. The near future for just detecting interstellar objects looks extremely promising, largely thanks to the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile. It's a U.S.-funded facility, massive 3.2 gigapixel camera. It will systematically monitor the entire southern sky over and over. Current projections suggest Rubin will discover a new interstellar object on average every few months.
Every few months, compared to the handful we know now.
Exactly. We're about to transition from having maybe 2 or 3 really weird objects to study to potentially having dozens, maybe hundreds. This ushers in a totally new era of interstellar traffic detection. We'll finally have a statistically significant sample set to analyze.
Okay, and beyond finding objects near us, we also need to look further out, right? Beyond just listening for radio signals, which, well, aside from maybe the Galt signal, hasn't yielded much. What other techno-signatures should we be searching for across deep space?
Yeah, we need to broaden the search beyond radio. We should look for indicators of large-scale industrial activity, techno-signatures.
Like what?
Well, one possibility is searching for artificial lighting on the night sides of exoplanets. If a planet's dark side is consistently lit up way more than you'd expect just from reflected starlight or natural phenomena, that could imply vast city networks, maybe huge industrial complexes.
Planetary scale streetlights, basically.
Sort of, yeah. Another really powerful indicator would be searching for chemical fingerprints of industrial pollution in exoplanet atmospheres.
Pollution, like smog.
Specifically, molecules that nature just doesn't make. Things like chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. We use them heavily on Earth for refrigerants and aerosols. They're very robust, they last a long time in an atmosphere, and they have very distinct spectral signatures.
And nature doesn't make CFCs.
Not that we know of, they seem purely artificial. So finding CFCs in an exoplanet's atmosphere would be a clear, almost undeniable indicator of advanced industrial activity. If we're spending $10 billion to look for faint signs of microbes, surely we should invest some resources in looking for blatant signs of industry, right? You know, when we ground this whole discussion in human priorities, we have to face an ultimate reality. The cosmological clock is ticking for life on Earth. It really is. We've done the calculations. Detailed orbital mechanics, stellar evolution. The outcome is pretty much locked in. Our sun will eventually swell into a red giant. And in about 7.6 billion years, it will completely engulf the Earth.
Engulf it. Destroyed.
Completely vaporized, along with the moon, actually.
Yeah.
Due to friction with the sun's expanded outer layers, the moon will likely spiral in and crash back into the Earth just before the final engulfment. Nothing we build on this rock, no monument, no trace of our civilization will survive that event, period.
That certainly puts our current squabbles into perspective. 7.6 billion years sounds like a long time, but it's finite. If we must move eventually, is the current popular vision colonizing Mars really our best long-term bet?
Frankly, colonizing Mars is, well, it's a low aspiration vision, it's short-sighted. Mars is a freezing desert, virtually no atmosphere, radiation exposure, conditions significantly worse than anywhere on Earth. And you're still stuck on one planetary body, vulnerable to impacts or other single-point failures.
So it's like jumping from the ship to a leaky lifeboat.
It feels a bit like the chimpanzee looking for bananas approach. We reach for the nearest, easiest rock, rather than thinking bigger. If humanity is serious about genuine long-term survival, about becoming truly interstellar, we should be pursuing something like the Noah's spaceship proposal.
Which involves building huge, self-sustaining habitats in space itself.
Exactly. We need a major shift in our investment priorities. Think about this. Humanity currently spends around $2.4 trillion annually on global military budgets.
Trillion with a T, every year.
Every single year. That's enough money to build a massive global infrastructure project annually. What if we diverted just a fraction of that, say 10%, a few $100 billion a year towards engineering?
Towards building these space platforms.
Yes, towards building massive, self-sustaining space habitats. Rotating structures to provide artificial gravity, shielded from radiation. Closed-loop ecosystems. These are inherently safer, easier to maintain long-term, and far more viable than relying on hostile nearby rocks. If we dedicated, say, $1 trillion a year to this for just a few decades, our engineers and architects could construct habitats capable of sustaining humanity for potentially billions of years. That's how we become truly resilient, truly interstellar.
Okay, let's circle back to Mars for a second. Even if it's not our ultimate destination, you argue it, and the moon too, they serve a different purpose now. as natural museums.
Precisely. Because neither Mars nor the Moon has a substantial atmosphere, debris doesn't burn up on entry like it does here. Anything that fell onto their surfaces billions of years ago, whether it's a natural meteorite or potentially a technological artifact, is likely still there, largely preserved under a layer of dust.
Frozen in time.
Exactly. And we might even have originated there. The theory of panspermia suggests life could have started on Mars first. It's smaller, cooled faster than Earth. Life might have developed there, then been seeded onto Earth via asteroid impacts carrying microbes.
So going to Mars might actually be going back to our original childhood home.
It's a real possibility. Makes you think, doesn't it?
What about actual signs of past life or technology there? We've seen those intriguing images of strange structures on Mars.
Yes, structures showing clear right-angled features have definitely been observed. Now, the surface of Mars is incredibly battered. I did a calculation. It's been hit by the equivalent of hundreds of Hiroshima-level explosions per square kilometer, averaged out over billions of years. So anything on the surface would be heavily eroded and impacted.
But remnants could survive.
It's possible. They could be relics of an ancient Martian intelligence if maybe their civilization got a slightly earlier start than ours. Or just interesting geology. But the most critical place to search right now, I believe, is underground, protected from surface bombardment.
The lava tubes, caves.
Exactly, Martian lava tubes and cave systems. We should be sending probes, eventually humans, into those environments. Just like we explore ancient caves on Earth looking for prehistoric paintings or artifacts, we should be doing the same on Mars. Who knows what we might find preserved down there?
This whole philosophical discussion, looking outwards and inwards, it brings us to a really crucial point. You talk about the collision of the two AIs. What do you mean by that?
I think humanity is facing two distinct, potentially civilization-altering challenges right now, both conveniently acronymed AI.
Right.
Artificial intelligence, the one we're building here,
Right.
and the possibility of alien intelligence, the one we might encounter out there.
Okay, let's take the first one. Artificial intelligence. What's the existential risk there, in your view? Is it killer robots?
My primary concern isn't necessarily a violent robot rebellion, at least not initially. The more subtle, perhaps more profound risk from AI is its potential to manipulate the human mind. Think of it as social media on super steroids. AI is becoming incredibly adept at understanding and influencing human psychology, preferences, biases. It could drive societal polarization to unprecedented levels, tailor information streams to create echo chambers we can't escape, basically turning large segments of humanity into, well, intellectually lazy robots following AI prompts.
Because we stop thinking for ourselves.
Exactly. People are already relying on AI without checking primary sources, without engaging critical thinking. We are outsourcing our cognition. And paradoxically, our reliance on AI is making us collectively intellectually dimmer, which makes it easier for AI to eventually supersede our cognitive abilities much sooner than we might expect. It's a potential self-inflicted wound.
Okay, that's a sobering take on Earth-based AI. That leaves the other AI, alien intelligence. Why might that encounter be a positive force? Maybe even necessary for our survival?
Alien intelligence, if we find it, and if it's communicative, could serve as the ultimate role model, or perhaps a partner. The truly transformative breakthrough wouldn't just be getting slightly better gadgets, it would be fundamental knowledge.
The knowledge of what?
Imagine finally understanding how an advanced civilization unified quantum mechanics and gravity. Those are the two bedrock pillars of modern physics, and we still cannot reconcile them. That knowledge alone would revolutionize everything. Or imagine learning the precise initial conditions, the ingredients for the Big Bang itself, the literal recipe for the cosmic cake, as I sometimes call it.
Understanding the universe at its deepest level.
Yes, that kind of cosmic truth, that level of understanding, it would change our entire trajectory. It could give us the insights and capabilities needed to ensure our survival far, far into the future.
Which brings us finally back to the big question, the Fermi paradox. If the galaxy is so old, so vast, teeming with potential, why isn't anyone here? Why haven't they shown up?
My response to that remains consistent. We need to shed our ingrained assumption, our cosmic arrogance, that advanced civilizations would automatically seek us out. Why would they? The universe is unbelievably vast.
So it's not necessarily a dark forest where everyone hides.
That's one possibility, sure. But I think it's more likely, or at least equally likely, that we simply have to actively seek them out. They're not just going to land on the White House lawn or show up for lunch in Los Alamos on our schedule. We need to build the better telescopes, launch the interceptor missions, vigorously engage in what you might call the cosmic dating game. The search itself, the shifting priorities, the intellectual humility it demands, that is the most consequential action we can possibly take right now. #outro.
This has been an incredibly detailed deep dive. We've gone from the strange statistical anomalies of Oumuamua and 3D Fatal Atlas.
Yeah, the data that just doesn't quite fit the natural box.
Right, to the philosophical necessity of shifting our whole scientific mindset, moving from pure risk avoidance to calculated risk-taking, guided by that compelling data.
And embracing that cosmic modesty we talked about, accepting we're probably not the center of the cosmic stage, not the main characters in the story.
And confronting the academic resistance, the cultural inertia that sometimes prioritizes, well, professional status over pursuing potentially groundbreaking, uncomfortable truths.
Which is where projects like the Galileo Project come in, actively trying to fill that critical gap left by the complete lack of federal funding for the search for intelligent life for technosignatures.
Before we wrap up, though, we absolutely have to touch on the most frustrating, most immediate point of irony in this whole story. It's the perfect encapsulation of what you called terrestrial stupidity, clashing with this vast cosmic mystery. I'm talking about the sequestered data on 3 Atlas.
Oh, this point is, it's absolutely agonizing for those of us trying to follow the evidence where it leads. Here's the situation. The best, highest resolution image ever taken of 3 Atlas was captured back on October 2nd, 2025.
By which instrument?
By the powerful HiRISE camera. It's on NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. This camera has incredible resolution, about 30 kilometers per pixel from its orbital vantage point. And it viewed this massive object, 3 Atlas, sideways as it was making its close approach to Mars.
Sideways view, high resolution. This single image could potentially resolve the entire scientific debate we've been having, couldn't it? Is it just a weirdly shaped rock, or does it show clear signs of technology?
Exactly. The single most important piece of observational evidence currently known to science regarding this profoundly anomalous object is sitting on a server somewhere unreleased.
Why? What's the holdup?
Bureaucracy. Plain and simple. The U.S. government entered a shutdown on October 1st, 2025, the day before the image was taken. And because of that shutdown, and subsequent NASA approval protocols, and internal governmental red tape, the data is stuck, sequestered.
So the data that could potentially answer one of the biggest questions in science is being held up by a government shutdown and paperwork.
The contrast is just staggering, isn't it? We possess the technology, we've gathered the data that might answer one of humanity's oldest, most profound questions, but terrestrial bureaucracy is physically blocking that truth from being shared and analyzed by the scientific community. It's deeply frustrating.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, if we're ever lucky enough, or perhaps unlucky enough, depending on who they are, to meet an alien civilization, they'll be the cosmic historians. Looking back at our time, what will they remember us for?
A good question.
Will we be remembered for staying huddled on this single tiny rock, fighting amongst ourselves over fleeting bits of territory and power, prioritizing grant proposals over groundbreaking truth? Or will we be remembered for making the leap, for becoming curious, outward-looking interstellar explorers?
Let's hope for the latter.
Finding a partner out there in the cosmos. It could fundamentally change our future for the better. Much like finding the right partner in your own private life can change everything.
Yeah.
The search itself, as you said, might be the most consequential, maybe even the most romantic, and certainly the most important action we could take right now.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for digging into this today.
Always fascinating. We'll get you next time for another deep dive.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something pretty important. We're going to try and cut through all the noise, the hype, the speculation around unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs. We're focusing strictly on the evidence, seriously. We've synthesized data from 18 of the most, rigorously investigated encounters, multi-source stuff. We're talking official military radar logs, documented physical traces like actual marks left behind, investigation transcripts, testimony from people who really know what they're looking at. Think Navy pilots, air traffic controllers, police officers, defense folks. So the mission here, find the common threads, the smoking guns, if you will. What does all this high credibility evidence really tell us when you put it all together? And the implication that seems to keep coming up, and we'll test this case by case, it suggests something physical, something intelligent, and definitely something operating way outside our known physics has repeatedly interacted with us, with our tech, our people.
Right. And what's really key here, what makes this deep dive maybe a bit different, is the standard we're setting. We're deliberately moving past just stories, the anecdotal stuff. We're only looking at incidents where you have multiple sensors, multiple sources backing things up. When you get a visual sighting.
Okay.
But then you pair it with advanced radar tracking. And it's confirmed by infrared video. And maybe, just maybe, you even find physical evidence on the ground.
Yeah.
That's when it gets really interesting. That's when you actually have something solid to analyze, something tangible. We're focusing on trained professionals, top-tier government equipment, and, importantly, documented long-term effects, whether that's effects on the environment or, tragically, on the witnesses themselves. So think of this as a data synthesis project. We're looking for patterns in capability, maybe intent, and honestly, maybe the most disturbing pattern is the official response sometimes.
Okay, let's start where it gets really tough for the skeptics. The physical evidence. Stuff you can actually touch, measure, not just lights in the sky. These are events that left, like a physical scar, a mark on the ground, burns on a person, actual melted rock. Let's dive in. We begin in Socorro, New Mexico, 1964, and the key figure here is Lonnie Zamora. What makes him credible? He wasn't just some guy seeing lights. He was a police officer, respected, known for being level-headed. And the situation was, well, kind of ironic. He was actually chasing a speeder. Then he hears this incredible roar, like a sustained explosion. He thought maybe the local dynamite shack went up.
Right. Standard procedure. He breaks off the chase, goes to investigate.
Exactly. He drives his patrol car up over this little ridge, and suddenly it's not a dynamite shack. Not even close.
He sees this object down in a ravine, describes it as oval-shaped, gleaming white metal, and it's resting on these 4 thin, kind of spindly legs, struts maybe, and he noticed something else. Strange symbols, almost like hieroglyphs, etched onto the side near the base, which, interestingly, people later connected to another famous case, Kecksburg, but that's another story. He also caught a glimpse, just briefly, of 2 small figures, like child-sized, dressed in white coveralls near the object. They seemed startled when they saw him, and poof, they disappeared, moved quickly behind the craft.
So right away, you've got the humanoid element.
Yeah.
But the real core here is the physics, the physical evidence.
Absolutely. Because as Zamora got closer, maybe 50 feet away, this thing, it came alive.
How so?
A really piercing, high-pitched noise started up, and then from underneath it, this bluish flame appeared. But Zamora was clear. It wasn't like a rocket blast, chaotic. It was controlled, steady, like directed energy.
Wow, okay.
Zamora, quite rightly, backed off fast. He thought the whole thing might just explode.
Can't blame him.
Then the object lifted off. Silently this time, the laser retracted into it, and then it just shot away. Incredible speed. Gone, leaving total silence behind.
But it didn't leave nothing behind, did it? That's the key.
Exactly, that's the smoking gun. Investigators were on site almost immediately. Project Blue Book guys, people from White Sands Missile Range, the FBI.
Always fun.
4 distinct landing impressions. Indentations in the hard desert ground, perfectly matching the position of the 4 legs Zamora described, like landing pads.
Okay, that's specific.
Very specific. And around these impressions, the local bushes, creosote bushes, they were blackened, scorched, clearly indicating intense focused heat had been there.
So not just marks, but heat evidence too.
Right, and the official conclusion. Project Blue Book, Major Hector Quintanilla, I believe, classified it officially as unexplained. They stated Zamora was sincere, credible, and the physical evidence, undeniable. It was like this thing left a literal stamp in the desert floor. Proof something real, something heavy, something hot had landed there.
Okay, that physical stamp idea. Let's carry that forward to Falcon Lake, Manitoba, Canada, 1967. This one. This takes physical evidence and makes it deeply personal. Tragically so. Our witness is Stefan Michalak. Not a pilot, not military. He was a prospector, experienced, practical guy. Again, not someone you'd expect to make things up.
Right, described as very down to earth.
He's out prospecting, and he stumbles upon this landed object, a metallic disc. Pretty big, maybe 35 feet across. He gets closer, cautiously, thinks maybe it's some kind of experimental U.S. aircraft that crashed.
He actually got close enough to touch it. Through his heavy prospecting glove, mind you. And he said the surface was smooth, seamless, and incredibly hot. Scorching hot.
Did he try to communicate?
He did. He called out. In English, then in Russian, just in case. No response. Just silence from the craft.
And then things took a turn.
A really terrifying turn. Suddenly, this panel, like a grid or a vent, opened up on the side of the disc. And bam! A blast of super hot air, maybe gas, shot out right at him. Smelled like sulfur, he said.
Hit him direct.
Yeah. Knocked him backwards. His shirt actually caught fire.
Oh my God.
But the injury itself became the crucial evidence. He suffered second-degree burns. Hospital confirmed it. but the pattern of the burns.
What about the pattern?
It was a distinct, grid-like pattern. Squares on his chest and stomach, precisely matching the grid vent he described seeing open up on the craft.
Whoa. Okay, that's specific isn't even the word.
Exactly. And his problems didn't end there. He suffered long-term health issues afterwards, chronic nausea, dizziness, recurring rashes that looked like radiation burns, significant weight loss. These symptoms plagued him for years. Very similar to radiation sickness.
And was there ground evidence, too, like in Scoro?
Absolutely. Investigators, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Air Force, civilian researchers, they all went to the site. They found a circular area of scorched earth right where Michalak said the object landed.
Okay, scorched earth matches the heat.
But here's the clincher. Lab tests. They took soil samples from that scorched circle and they tested remnants of his burned clothing. Elevated levels of radioactive isotopes, specifically radium-226.
Radium-226, is that normal?
Not at those levels, not in that environment. Radium-226 doesn't just show up like that. It was a significant radioactive anomaly directly linked to the landing site and the witnesses' contaminated clothing.
Oh.
And for years afterwards, the vegetation in that exact circle just wouldn't grow back properly. More lingering, measurable proof that something incredibly energetic, possibly radioactive, had touched down there.
That theme, radiation damage, physical harm, it really culminates in the Cash Landrum case, Texas, 1980. This one is chilling because it seems to bring together civilian harm, a bizarre object, and a suspected military presence, followed by complete denial.
It's a landmark case for exactly those reasons. You have 3 witnesses, Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Vicki's 7-year-old grandson, Colby, driving home late at night through this dark wooded area near Dayton, Texas.
And they see.
They encounter this massive object, hovering low over the road, completely blocking their path. They described it as diamond-shaped, pulsing with this intense orange-red light. And it was radiating heat, intense, roaring heat.
How intense.
So intense, it made the car's metal body hot to the touch. Betty Cash got out of the car briefly, touched the door handle, and it burned her hand instantly. The air itself felt thick with heat.
Just sitting there blocking the road.
Blocking the road, pulsing light, blasting heat. But then something even stranger happened.
What was that?
Helicopters. Lots of them. They started appearing, converging on the object. The witnesses counted at least 23, mostly big tandem rotor types like CH-47 Chinooks and some smaller Huey-style helicopters.
23 military helicopters.
That's what they reported seeing. And they weren't just flying by. They seemed to be actively involved with the object, escorting it, maybe trying to corral it or contain it somehow.
Okay, wait. If they saw that many clearly identifiable military helicopters, how on earth could the government later say none of their aircraft were anywhere near there that night? That just sounds impossible.
It is the absolute core contradiction of the case. Complete denial from every relevant agency. No U.S. military aircraft were in that area they maintained. It's textbook gaslighting, frankly.
But the evidence wasn't just what they saw, right? It was what happened to them afterwards.
Exactly. The medical evidence is undeniable. All 3 suffered immediate, severe symptoms. Their skin became swollen, red, developed painful blisters, massive hair loss, excruciating eye pain, like welding flash burns, severe gastrointestinal damage, nausea, diarrhea, lasting symptoms.
Doctors confirmed this.
Oh, absolutely. Doctors documented everything meticulously. Betty Cash especially had extensive hospitalization records. The symptoms closely mirrored acute exposure to ionizing radiation. Specifically, beta and gamma radiation seemed likely based on the effects, including documented abnormalities in their blood cells.
So the real evidence here isn't a blurry photo. It's hospital charts, medical records.
Precisely. Verifiable medical documentation of severe, lasting physical trauma directly linked temporally and spatially to this encounter. That's incredibly powerful.
Did they try to sue?
They did. A $20 million lawsuit against the U.S. government, but it ultimately failed.
Why? If the medical evidence was so strong.
Because they couldn't definitively prove which specific government agency or entity was responsible for the object or the helicopters allegedly escorting it. The government maintained its wall of denial, leaving a void in the official record. They couldn't assign liability without proof of responsibility, despite the undeniable injuries.
So the trauma was real, documented, but officially. Nobody was responsible.
Yeah.
That's deeply disturbing.
It is. It highlights the potential human cost of these encounters and the extreme difficulty in getting official acknowledgement, let alone accountability. Okay, so if that first group of cases gave us physical traces, scars on the land and on people, this next section deals with evidence captured by technology. The electronic footprint, you might say, recorded by some of the most advanced military sensors on the planet. When you can't, scoop up radioactive soil, you rely on radar, infrared, high-speed cameras. And these cases, they just shatter our understanding of basic physics.
And we have to start with the big ones, right? The ones that really blew the lid off things recently. Nimitz, Tic Tac, Gimbal.
Absolutely. 2004, 2015, U.S. Navy carrier strike groups. And the witnesses here, Top Guns, Navy fighter pilots, people trained to identify anything that flies, their credibility is just off the charts.
So, 2004, off the coast of California, the USS Nimitz carrier group. What happened first?
It started with the USS Princeton. It's an Aegis cruiser equipped with the SPY-1 radar system. This is arguably the most advanced naval radar in the world, designed to track hundreds of targets, filter out clutter, birds, weather. It's incredibly sophisticated.
And it started picking up, boy.
Anomalous tracks. Objects appearing suddenly way up high, like 80,000 feet, then dropping almost instantly down to sea level, maybe 20,000 feet in just seconds, hovering, then zipping off at speeds that, they didn't make sense. They weren't behaving like normal aircraft.
This is the radar saw them first.
Radar saw them first. Then they sent the fighters to take a look. Commander David Fravor was one of the lead pilots.
And he saw the Tic Tac.
He saw the Tic Tac. He described it exactly as the nickname suggests. White, oblong, maybe 40 feet long, completely smooth, no wings, no windows, no engines, no visible propulsion, no exhaust plume, just this white Tic Tac shape hanging in the air.
Hovering,
yeah, over this weird patch of churning water in an otherwise calm sea, like something was under the surface.
And the physics-defying part.
The interaction. Fravor decides to descend. Check it out. As he banks his FA-18 Super Hornet down, the Tic Tac instantly mirrors his movement, but upwards, maintaining the distance.
Okay, responsive.
Very responsive. Then Fravor decides to cut across the circle, go straight at it, head on, and the Tic Tac accelerated. Not just fast, instantaneously. Fravor described it as like 0 to hypersonic in a blink. It just vanished. And less than a second later, the radar operators on the Princeton picked it up again, 60 miles away, at Fravor's prearranged rendezvous point.
60 miles.
Yeah.
In less than a second.
Yeah. You do the math on the acceleration and G-forces required for that. For any known aircraft, even a missile, that's impossible. The G-force would crush the craft and anyone inside. This thing showed zero inertia. Like physics didn't apply to it.
Wow. Okay. Zero inertia. And then there's the gimbal footage from 2015. That showed something else.
Right. Different event. East Coast this time. USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Group. Captured by a Navy jet's FLIR pod that's forward-looking infrared. So it's these heat signatures.
And what did the FLIR show?
It showed this object glowing hot against the cold sky, kind of oval or saucer-shaped, flying along steadily. But then it starts to rotate. It turns along its long axis like it's rolling, while still flying perfectly straight ahead.
And you can hear the pilots on the recording, right?
Yeah, clear as day. Look at that thing, dude. It's rotating. They're just baffled.
Okay, so explain for us non-pilots, why is rotating like that while flying straight so weird?
Well, think about how a plane flies. It needs lift from its wings. The airflow over the wings keeps it up. If you try to roll a conventional plane like that, especially slowly and controlled while moving forward, you completely disrupt the airflow. You lose lift.
So it should, what? Fall, tumble.
Exactly, stall and tumble out of control. But the gimbal object, it just rotates smoothly, effortlessly, while maintaining perfect forward flight and altitude. No wobble, no instability, meaning it's probably not flying using aerodynamics as we understand it. It suggests it's manipulating gravity or inertia around itself somehow, moving through the air without really interacting with it in the conventional way.
So you've got visual confirmation from elite pilots, multiple advanced radar systems tracking it, and confirmed infrared video from the Pentagon itself.
That's the trifecta. That convergence of data makes Nimitz and gimbal incredibly compelling. Modern, high-tech, high-credibility evidence, the gold standard, really.
And this kind of tech isn't just seen by the U.S. Navy. We see similar things globally, right? Like transmedium travel, things going into water.
Right. The Aguadilla UFO incident in Puerto Rico, 2013. This was captured by a U.S. Department of Homeland Security aircraft, a DHC-8 turboprop, using its thermal infrared camera.
What do they film?
They filmed this object, again, glowing hot on the thermal camera, moving fast at low altitude near the coast. Its flight path was erratic, But the really stunning part was watching it fly directly into the ocean.
Without slowing down or splashing.
Exactly. No splash, no apparent change in speed, no visible disturbance of the water. It just entered the water seamlessly. And then moments later, it came back out of the water just as smoothly and flew off. Then things got even weirder. Just before it finally disappeared underwater for good, the video appears to show the single object splitting into two distinct separate objects.
Split in two.
Looked like it, which adds controlled, rapid morphing or separation to its capabilities. Air to water, water to air, no problem. And maybe it can split itself. Defies our understanding of physics and material science.
Okay, sticking with the water theme, but moving to South America. The Chilean Navy video from 2014. Chile actually has an official government body to study UAPs, right?
They do. It's called the CITHA-A Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomena. Very serious group, involves military and scientific experts.
And they investigated this video.
Thoroughly. A Chilean Navy helicopter was on patrol off the coast near Valparaiso. They filmed a dark, solid-looking object for about 10 minutes using their FLIR camera.
What was unusual about it?
Well, again, no visible wings, no obvious engine, no normal heat signature you'd expect from propulsion. It just moved along. But the really strange thing happened twice during the recording.
What was that?
The object appeared to eject or vent something. A plume or a spray of hot material. Clearly visible on the thermal camera as a burst of heat trailing behind it. And right after releasing this plume, it would accelerate rapidly.
So, not a contrail, like from a jet engine.
Definitely not a contrail. Contrails are water vapor condensation, usually seen at high altitudes, and they don't show up as hot bursts on thermal imaging. The CITHA-A concluded this was some kind of deliberate ejection of hot material, maybe related to its propulsion or maneuvering system, something completely unknown. And ultimately, they officially classified the object as a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Couldn't explain it.
It's incredible how long this has been going on. These aren't just recent events. You mentioned the Cold War earlier.
Oh yeah, decades. Take the RB-47 incident, 1957, over the southern United States.
What happened there?
You had a U.S. Air Force RB-47 reconnaissance jet, a sophisticated aircraft for its time carrying a crew of 6 highly trained officers packed with electronic surveillance gear.
And they encountered something.
They encountered and tracked an unknown object for over 700 miles. The encounter lasted about 90 minutes continuously.
How do they track it?
That's what makes this case so strong, especially for the era. They have multiple confirmations. 1, the crew saw it visually, a bright light behaving erratically. 2, multiple ground radar stations confirmed tracking an object alongside the RB-47. 3, and this is crucial, the plane's own specialized electronic warfare equipment, the ECM gear.
ECM.
Electronic countermeasures. Gear designed specifically to detect and analyze enemy radar signals. That gear locked onto a strange, non-standard radar-like signal coming from the object, and that signal stayed right with them, pacing the jet perfectly for the entire 700 miles.
So visual, ground radar, and the plane's own electronic sensors all confirming the same thing.
Exactly. 3 independent data streams all pointing to a physical controlled object capable of sustained high-speed flight, emitting its own detectable energy signature. The Air Force investigated, of course, under Project Blue Book. Their conclusion: unexplained. Couldn't debunk it.
Okay, tracking jets is one thing, but then there's the nuclear connection. That really raises the stakes, doesn't it? The Malmstrom Air Force Base incident, Montana, 1967.
This is probably one of the most chilling and well-documented incidents suggesting direct interference with nuclear weapons systems.
What exactly happened at Malmstrom? It's a base for ICBMs, right? Intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Correct. Minuteman missiles, the backbone of the U.S. nuclear deterrent. On 2 separate occasions in March 1967, involving 2 different missile launch control facilities, Echo Flight and Oscar Flight, something extraordinary happened. Entire groups of Minuteman ICBMs suddenly went offline. They dropped into what's called a no-go status, meaning they couldn't be launched instantly and simultaneously within each flight.
All at once. Not like one missile failing, then another.
No, that's key. An entire flight of maybe 10 missiles, each in its hardened silo, independently powered and controlled, all failing at the exact same moment. There was no known conventional explanation, no power surge, no system failure that could account for that simultaneous collective shutdown.
Okay, that's technically baffling, but was there anything else going on? Anything seen?
Yes. And this is where it gets really alarming. At the exact time these missiles were going offline, security personnel on the surface, guarding the missile silos, reported seeing UFOs. glowing reddish-orange orbs or disc-like objects hovering silently directly over the launch facilities.
Seriously, right over the missile silos.
Right over them. We have testimony from officers who were there, like Robert Salas, who was a deputy missile launch commander at Oscar Flight. He confirmed the sequence, security calls reporting a UFO hovering outside the front gate, and minutes later, his missiles start dropping offline, one by one, over about 10 seconds. All 10 of them. Unlaunchable.
So the shutdown directly coincided with the UFO sightings overhead.
The correlation is undeniable based on the witness testimony and the logs. The implication is staggering. An unknown intelligence using highly advanced technology demonstrated the ability to penetrate secure military airspace and actively, deliberately, and temporarily disable America's nuclear missiles.
That suggests not just observation, but capability, control even.
It demonstrates both a clear interest in our most sensitive weapons and a capability far beyond ours to potentially neutralize them. And Malmstrom wasn't an isolated incident. You see this pattern repeated at other nuclear sites, military bases, like the Goose Bay AFB case in Labrador back in 1954.
What happened there?
Radar tracked an object. They scrambled a Canadian CF-100 jet to intercept. The jet gets close, tries to engage, and the object just shoots straight up, vertically, at a speed that just defied gravity and aerodynamics, vanished off the radar scope in seconds, then reappeared miles away moments later. Classic UAP behavior, extreme acceleration, right-angle turns, and often observed near strategic military locations, especially those related to nuclear capabilities. It's a consistent pattern over decades.
Okay, so we've got physical traces, high-tech sensor data. Now let's talk about sheer numbers, mass sightings. When thousands of people see the same inexplicable thing, that's got to count for something, right?
It definitely adds another layer of evidence. While individual perception can be tricky, when you have a massive number of independent witnesses describing the same core phenomenon, especially over a wide area, it becomes much harder to dismiss as misidentification or hallucination.
And the classic example, the one everyone knows, has to be the Phoenix Lights, Arizona, 1997.
Absolutely. The scale of Phoenix is just immense. We're not talking about one town. We're talking thousands of witnesses spread across hundreds of miles. Arizona, Nevada, even into Sonora, Mexico.
And what was the main thing people saw? There were different reports, weren't there?
There were kind of two distinct phases or types of sightings that night, which sometimes causes confusion. But the first event, the really significant one, was this enormous object. People described it as a massive, dark, triangular, or V-shaped formation of lights.
Oh, massive.
Estimates varied, obviously, but many witnesses, including pilots, described it as being unbelievably large, maybe a mile wide, some said, just gliding silently across the sky over populated areas, Phoenix, Tucson. People saw it from their backyards, from highways.
A mile wide, silent V-shape. That's not a plane.
Definitely not a conventional aircraft. The sheer size and the absolute silence were the key features everyone agreed on. It moved slowly, deliberately.
Okay, so that was the first event. What was the second?
Later that evening, maybe an hour or two after the giant V passed through, a separate string of bright, stationary lights appeared in the sky over the Estrella Mountains near Phoenix. They just hung there for a while.
And that's what the military commented on, right?
Yes. The Air Force came out relatively quickly and said those lights, the second set, the stationary ones, were flares. Specifically, illumination flares dropped by A-10 Warthog aircraft during a training exercise at the Barry M. Goldwater Range.
Okay, flares. Plausible for stationary lights, maybe. But did that explain the giant mile-wide V that flew across the state earlier?
Not at all, and that's the critical point. The flare explanation only addressed the second, later event. It did nothing to explain the enormous, structured, silent craft witnessed by thousands much earlier in the evening. Many witnesses were adamant that what they saw first was absolutely not flares.
And then there's the political twist years later.
Right. Fife Symington. He was the governor of Arizona at the time in 1997. Initially, he actually held this somewhat bizarre press conference where he brought someone out dressed in an alien costume, trying to make light of it, calm people down.
Yeah, I remember that. Seemed like he was dismissing it.
That was the public stance. But years later, after he was out of office, Governor Symington came forward and said, actually, I saw it too. He personally witnessed that massive V-shaped craft. And he was unequivocal. He said it was otherworldly, enormous, and absolutely not flares or any man-made object he recognized.
A sitting governor saw it and later confirmed it was real and unexplained.
Yes, that adds tremendous weight. You have thousands of civilian reports, consistent descriptions, and then you have validation from the highest elected official in the state at the time who initially tried to downplay it. The sheer volume of testimony, plus that official reversal, makes Phoenix a cornerstone case.
Okay, shifting gears dramatically. Different continent, different type of witness. The aerial school encounter. Rua, Zimbabwe, 1994. This one involves children, right?
Yeah.
And something more than just seeing a craft.
Yes, this is a fascinating and somewhat controversial case because of the nature of the witnesses and the reported communication. You had over 60 school children, mostly between the ages of 6 and 12, at a private primary school in rural Zimbabwe.
And during their morning recess, out playing.
They reported seeing one or more silver disc-shaped objects land in a brushy area just beyond their playground. Land or hover very close to the ground.
The 60 kids saw this.
Over 60 kids, yeah. And they also reported seeing beings emerge from the craft or near it.
What did they describe?
Pretty consistent descriptions, actually. Small beings, maybe 3 to 4 feet tall, humanoid shape, but with very large heads, large, dark, elongated eyes, thin bodies, often described wearing dark, tight-fitting suits. Classic gray alien morphology, essentially.
Okay, seeing a craft, seeing beings. That's startling enough.
Yeah.
But there was more, wasn't there? The communication aspect.
That's the most extraordinary part. Many of the children reported receiving communication from these beings. Not spoken words, but telepathic messages, thoughts, images, feelings put directly into their minds.
Telepathic messages. What were the messages about?
Remarkably consistent themes emerged, even from very young children. The core message was apparently a warning about environmental destruction, how we are harming the planet, and about the misuse of technology, a kind of ecological and technological warning.
Wow. Complex themes for young kids. How was this investigated?
Very seriously, actually. Journalists arrived quickly, but notably, Dr. John Mack, a Pulitzer Prize-winning Harvard psychiatrist who studied abduction and contact experiences, flew to Zimbabwe specifically to investigate this case.
What did Dr. Mack conclude? He interviewed the children, right?
Yeah, he did. Extensively. Individually and in groups. He used his clinical expertise to assess their state. And his conclusion was that the children were not making it up. They weren't suffering from mass hysteria or confabulating. He found their accounts to be sincere, consistent, and deeply felt. They were describing a real, impactful, and genuinely puzzling experience.
So a Harvard psychiatrist believed the children were telling the truth about seeing a craft, beings, and receiving telepathic warnings.
He concluded their experience was authentic, that they genuinely believed what they were reporting, and it wasn't explained by conventional psychological factors. Whether the source was objectively extraterrestrial is another question, but Mack was convinced of the sincerity and consistency of the children's trauma and testimony. It's a case that really forces you to confront the possibility of direct, albeit nonverbal, communication attempts.
Okay, from rural Zimbabwe to the heart of American power. The Washington, D.C. flap, 1952. This wasn't just a few lights, this was sustained activity over the nation's capital.
Yeah, this was a major event. Huge public and official reaction. It happened over 2 consecutive weekends in July 1952.
What were people seeing? And what were the radars picking up?
Both. Radar operators at Washington National Airport, now Reagan National, and Andrews Air Force Base started tracking multiple unidentified targets. These weren't just blips. They appeared as solid, structured returns on the radar screens.
And they were maneuvering.
How? In ways that just defied known aircraft capabilities. They were clocked at speeds ranging from hovering motionless to incredibly high speeds, maybe thousands of miles per hour. They made abrupt, sharp, right-angled turns, things that would rip a conventional plane apart or, crush the pilot. And they were doing this right over the most restricted airspace in the country, the White House, the Capitol building.
Were fighters scrambled?
Oh, yeah. F-94 Starfire interceptor jets were scrambled from nearby bases. And this is where it got really frustrating for the Air Force, because the objects seemed to play cat and mouse with them. The jets would try to close in, and the objects would just accelerate away, easily outrunning them, or they'd simply vanish off the radar, and visually, the moment the jets got close, they demonstrated complete technological superiority and evasiveness.
So fighters couldn't catch them. Radar was tracking them over the White House. What was the official reaction? This must have caused panic.
It caused a huge stir. Front page news across the country. The Air Force was under immense pressure. They ended up holding the largest Pentagon press conference since World War II to try and calm things down.
What did they say? Do they have an explanation?
They tried.
Yep.
Major General John Samford, the Air Force Director of Intelligence, addressed the media. He acknowledged the radar trackings were real, corroborated in some cases, but he offered a primary explanation of temperature inversions.
Temperature inversions, like weather causing radar ghosts.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. The theory was that layers of warm air over cool air could bend radar beams and create false echoes. It's a real phenomenon, but whether it could explain all the structured targets, their incredible speeds, their intelligent maneuvers, and the visual confirmations from pilots and ground observers, well, that was debatable.
So they offered a possible explanation, but did they admit some were unexplained?
Samford had to concede that point. He admitted that some percentage of sightings remained unexplained even after rigorous analysis. It was a rare public admission from the military right at the height of the Cold War that they didn't fully control their own capital's airspace and couldn't identify everything flying in it. A truly profound moment. Okay, so we've seen the physical traces, the advanced tech tracked by sensors, the mass sightings. What happens when you put all these threads together? A final pattern seems to emerge, and it's one of containment. Suppression, even. It seems the more credible, the more tangible the evidence, the more likely there's an effort, official or otherwise, to deny it, hide it, or make the witnesses doubt what they saw.
And sometimes that goes beyond just denial. It involves active recovery, maybe, like the Coyami crash story, Chihuahua Desert, Mexico, 1974.
This is a deeply disturbing account, sourced primarily from leaked intelligence documents and whistleblower testimony, so keep that context in mind. But the story itself is stark.
What's the story?
U.S. radar reportedly tracked an unknown object moving incredibly fast, something like 2,500 miles per hour, heading south over Mexico. At the same time, they were tracking a small civilian plane, a Cessna 180, in the same area.
And they collided.
The radar tracks converged, and then both signals vanished simultaneously, indicating a likely mid-air collision or event over the remote Chihuahua Desert.
So what happened on the ground?
The Mexican military responded first. They deployed a convoy to the suspected crash zone. They apparently found two sites. One was the wreckage of the Cessna. The other, some distance away, was a largely intact, disc-shaped craft. Smooth, seamless metal, maybe 16 feet across, partially buried in the sand.
Intact. And did they report anything else?
The last radio transmission intercepted from that Mexican recovery team, according to these leaked sources, mentioned something chilling. Posiblemente biological. Possibly biological. Suggesting occupants, maybe.
Wow. Okay, so the Mexicans found it. Then what?
Then, according to the leaks, the U.S. decided it needed to retrieve the object. Under extreme secrecy, a U.S. military recovery team was dispatched. They crossed the border into Mexico covertly without any official diplomatic clearance.
They just went in.
Apparently so. When the U.S. team arrived at the disc crash site, they reportedly found the Mexican soldiers who had been guarding it dead.
Dead how?
The reports suggest they showed signs of massive cellular damage, as if they'd been exposed to intense radiation or some kind of unknown energy field from the craft. Very similar, potentially, to the types of injuries seen in the Cash Landrum case, but obviously fatal in this instance.
That's horrific. What did the U.S. team do?
The reported protocol was brutal and thorough. They allegedly incinerated the bodies of the Mexican soldiers on site. They scrubbed the entire area clean of any evidence. Then they rigged the disc, airlifted it out along with the Cessna wreckage, and transported it all back to the U.S., likely to a secure facility.
And the official record?
A complete blank. No official U.S. or Mexican government acknowledgement of the event. No public record of a crash. No death records for those Mexican soldiers. It exists only in these leaked intelligence documents like the supposed Aquarius briefing and coded testimony. If true, it represents an extraordinary example of covert transnational recovery and evidence suppression at the highest level. A perfect historical void.
That idea of suppression, of making things disappear, doesn't just apply to physical objects, does it? It extends to witnesses. Which brings us to the whole Men in Black phenomenon, MIBs.
Right, and the MIB phenomenon is fascinating because it seems almost like a necessary component if there's a systematic cover-up. You need a mechanism to silence or discredit witnesses, especially after close encounters.
Is it just a modern myth, though? Or is there evidence for it?
Well, researcher Albert-Musale spent decades compiling a massive database of humanoid encounters from around the world. And his work strongly suggests the MIB phenomenon isn't just random anecdotes, it's a persistent cross-cultural pattern. These visits almost always follow significant UFO sightings, particularly those involving landed craft or visible occupants.
And these aren't just guys in black suits asking questions politely, are they? The descriptions are often weird.
Very weird. They operate through intimidation, psychological pressure, and often exhibit deeply strange behavior that hints they might not be entirely human, or at least not normal government agents.
Give us an example.
Okay, take the Paul Miller case. Minnow, North Dakota, 1961. Miller saw a glowing object land, saw two figures emerge. He panicked and actually fired a rifle at them. The object took off.
Okay, traumatic encounter.
Hours later, two men show up at his door. Identical dark suits, maybe slightly old-fashioned. Here's the unnerving part. They knew everything about him. His family details, his confidential military service history, stuff not easily accessible.
And their message.
Flat, emotionless. They just quietly told him it would be best if you forgot about last night. Pure intimidation through implied knowledge and authority. No overt threats needed.
Okay, that's creepy. But sometimes it gets even stranger, right? More theatrical.
Absolutely. Like the Dr. Herbert Hopkins case, Maine, 1976. Hopkins was a respected physician who also consulted on UFO cases. He gets this strange phone call, identifies himself as a UFO researcher. Minutes later, a man is at his door.
That fast.
Minutes. And the description Hopkins gave is classic high strangeness MIB. The man was pale, almost waxy skin, no eyebrows or eyelashes, bright red, lipstick-like lips that looked painted on, wearing a black suit, black tie, black hat. Gave off an aura of intense coldness and artificiality.
Okay, just looking weird is one thing.
But then came the demonstration. The visitor told Hopkins to stop his UFO research, took a penny or a coin from his pocket, placed it on his own hand. Hopkins watched as the coin seemed to glow, then dematerialize, just vanished into thin air right in the MIB's hand.
It dissolved.
Dissolved, dematerialized, gone. Then the visitor said something like, "My energy is running low, I must leave now," and he left.
What did Hopkins do?
He was absolutely terrified, believed he'd encountered something non-human with impossible abilities. He immediately gathered up all his UFO research files, tapes, everything, and destroyed them. Burned them. The psychological impact was total. That wasn't a request, it was a command backed by an impossible display.
It's like psychological warfare.
Exactly. And it's not always direct confrontation. Sometimes it's just surveillance, persistent, unnerving observation, like the Jack Robinson case, Jersey City, 1968.
What happened there?
Robinson was another UFO researcher. He and his wife started noticing a man sitting in a black sedan parked down the street, just watching their apartment. For days. Same car, same man. Unmoving, often described as unblinking, just staring.
Just watching.
Just watching. They even managed to get a photograph of the car and the man. Around the same time, they started noticing small disturbances inside their apartment when they came home. Papers slightly moved, drawers maybe opened and closed. Nothing stolen, just signs someone had been inside.
So surveillance plus subtle intrusion.
Right. It creates this intense paranoia and feeling of violation. The MIB phenomenon, whether it's a shadowy government agency or something even stranger, seems designed to enforce silence and isolation through psychological pressure, bizarre displays, and the implication of total omniscience and control. It's the enforcement arm of this oppression, you could say.
So after digging through all this, the physical traces, the radar logs, the pilot testimony, the mass sightings, the suppression, what does it all mean? Where does this synthesis leave us? I mean, we've laid out cases with real physical scars. You can point to the radiation burns on Betty Cash and Vicki Landrum, the radium-226 at Falcon Lake. That's tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the performance data, Nimitz, gimbal, the world's best pilots and radar systems, tracking objects that pull maneuvers flat out impossible for our technology.
Mm-hmm.
Zero inertia, instantaneous acceleration, transmedium travel without slowing down. That defies physics as we know it.
And woven through it all is this persistent pattern. An unknown presence demonstrating clear signs of non-human intelligence. Operating technology that's generations ahead of ours. Showing a distinct, almost unsettling interest in our most sensitive technology, especially nuclear sites like Malmstrom. And alongside that presence, a consistent pattern of official denial, obfuscation, or in cases like Koyami or the MIB encounters, active suppression and containment of the evidence and the witnesses.
Yeah, when you see that range, melted rock in Socorro, radioactive soil in Falcon Lake, sophisticated infrared video from Navy jets, simultaneous ICBM shutdowns, thousands seeing the same giant craft over Phoenix, credible reports of recovered discs, and these bizarre MIB encounters. And the official response is almost always nothing to see here, or it was flares, or temperature inversion, or just silence, even when the evidence, like the Cash Landrum medical records, is undeniable.
Yeah.
What does that pattern itself tell us?
It forces you to ask a really fundamental question, doesn't it? If the evidence for something extraordinary is so varied, so persistent, coming from such credible sources and advanced sensors, and yet the official posture is overwhelmingly one of denial or containment, what does that reveal about the reality we think we understand? About the limits of what we're allowed to know?
Maybe the most extraordinary thing about these UAP cases isn't just what people are seeing in the sky. Maybe it's the incredible lengths that seem to be taken consistently over decades to ensure that the evidence is minimized, that witnesses forget, or that the public remains uncertain. So the final thought to leave you with is this. If that suppression is real, what unacknowledged truths about our place in the cosmos, about reality itself, are we being shielded from, or maybe isolated from?